tried my door handle, once, quietly. Then he stopped smiling. So this happened to me about, I want to say, 8 years ago now? And I've only told a handful of people, mostly because when I say it out loud, it sounds like I'm exaggerating. I'm not. If anything, I've calmed it down over the years because the real version keeps me up. Back then, I drove for a living. Long haul mostly. Furniture, appliances, whatever needed to get from one state to the next. You learn the roads, you learn the rest stops, and you learn that the world at 2 in the morning on an empty interstate is a completely different place than the one everybody else lives in. This particular night, I was somewhere out in the middle of nowhere. The kind of stretch where there's nothing but dark on both sides and your headlights and the white lines. I'd been driving maybe 9 hours and I needed to close my eyes, so I pulled into one of those little rest areas. You know the ones. A bathroom building, a couple of vending machines, a handful of parking spots, and a whole lot of nothing around it. There was one other vehicle there, a car, parked off at the far end, away from the lights. I didn't think much of it. People sleep at these places the same as me. I parked, I got my head down, and I was out in about 5 minutes. I don't know how long I slept, but I woke up because of a sound, a soft one. Tap tap on the glass of my driver's window. Now, when you sleep in your truck, you get used to sounds. The engine ticking, wind, other trucks. This wasn't that. This was knuckles, on my window, deliberate. I sat up and there was a man standing right outside my door. Older guy, thin. He had this friendly sort of face and he was smiling and he had his hands kind of held up like, "Hey, sorry, don't mean to scare you." And through the glass he says, "Hey there, I'm real sorry to wake you. My car won't start and my phone's dead. Any chance you got a phone I could borrow?" And look, that's a normal ask. Out there, that far from anything, you help people. I've been the guy with the dead battery. So my first instinct was to reach for my phone. But something stopped me. And I've thought a lot about what it was, and I think it was this. His car was at the far end of the lot, and he'd walked all the way across, in the dark, past the lit-up building with the vending machines, past the empty spots, to knock on the window of the one truck with a person sleeping in it. If your car breaks down and you need help, you go to the light. You go to the building. You don't cross a dark parking lot to wake up a stranger. So I didn't roll the window down. I talked to him through the glass. I said, "Yeah, no problem. Tell me the number and I'll call it for you." Figured if he was legit, that solves his problem. I make the call, help's on the way, everybody's happy. And he stopped smiling, just for a second. And in that second, his face was completely different. Then the smile came back and he goes, "Nah, it's easier if I just do it myself. Why don't you pop the door? I'll only be a minute." I said no. Politely, but no. I said I'd call whoever he wanted, but I wasn't opening the door at 2 in the morning. He stood there. And then he did the thing that I still see when I close my eyes. He leaned in, real close to the glass, and he cupped his hands around his face, and he looked into the cab, past me, looking around the inside of my truck, checking the sleeper, checking if I was alone, checking what was in there. And then he reached down and he tried the door handle. I heard it. That little mechanical click of someone pulling a locked handle. He tried it once, calm, like he was just seeing. Then he stepped back and he looked at me through the glass and he wasn't smiling anymore at all. I started the engine. That's all I did. I just turned the key and the truck roared to life and my headlights hit the lot. And the second that happened, the guy turned and walked away. Not toward his broken down car, the opposite direction. off toward the tree line at the edge of the lot into the dark, and gone. I pulled out of that rest stop so fast I nearly clipped the exit sign. Now here's the part that turned it from a scary night into something I actually reported. About 20 minutes down the road, I passed a state trooper parked on the shoulder running radar, and something made me pull over and flag him down. I told him what happened, kind of embarrassed, figuring he'd tell me some guy asked to use a phone, big deal. He didn't laugh. He got real quiet, and he asked me exactly which rest stop, and he wrote it down, and he got on his radio. And then he told me. He said there'd been a series of incidents along that corridor, drivers mostly, people who stopped to sleep. He said the pattern was somebody approaching at night with a story, broken down car, dead phone, something to get you to open up. And he said a couple of those stops had ended with the driver's truck being found empty in the morning. He said the car parked at the far end, the broken down one, was almost certainly running fine, that it was bait, that the whole thing was a setup. And the only variable was whether the driver rolled the window down. I never found out if they caught anybody. I moved to local routes about a year later, partly because of that night. I don't sleep at rest stops anymore. If I'm tired, I find a truck stop with lights and people and cameras, and I still lock every door twice. And every so often, on a dark road, I think about how close I came to reaching for that phone, how normal his ask was, how easy it would have been to just roll the window down a couple inches to hear him better. That couple of inches. That's the whole thing. That's the entire difference between me telling you this story and me being a truck somebody found empty at a rest stop. I think about that a lot. I want to say right at the top, I'm not somebody who notices things. My wife jokes that a parade could go past our window and I'd ask her if she heard something. So the fact that I noticed this at all is probably the only reason I'm okay. This was maybe 5 years ago. I'd sold an old motorcycle that week. Guy paid me in cash, which I know, but that's how he wanted to do it. So I had a decent amount of money sitting in my account, and on this particular night, I stopped at an ATM to pull some of it out. We were paying a contractor in the morning, and he wanted cash too. Everybody wants cash. It was late, maybe 11:30. The ATM was one of those standalone ones in a strip mall parking lot. Bank branch closed, lot mostly empty. One of those big lights overhead making a circle of white and everything past it just dark. I pulled up, left the car running, walked to the machine. And while I was standing there punching in my card, a car came into the lot. Nothing weird about that by itself, but it didn't park near the stores, and it didn't come to the ATM line behind me. It rolled in slow and stopped over at the edge of the lot, out past the light. Engine on, headlights off. I noticed it the way you notice things without noticing them, you know? It went in somewhere in the back of my head and sat there. I took out the cash, and it was a lot, more than I'd normally ever carry. Folded it into my jacket pocket, got back in my car, and pulled out of the lot. And the car at the edge of the lot pulled out behind me. Still no headlights. It went about half a block dark before the lights came on. Now look, I told you I don't notice things. And the first thing your brain does with something like this is explain it. Somebody was sitting in the lot texting, finished up, left at the same time as me. Coincidence. The roads only go so many directions. That's what I told myself for the first mile. But it stayed with me. Every turn I made, a few seconds later, those same headlights swung around behind me. Not close, never close. Always 3-4 cars back when there was traffic. And when there wasn't traffic, it would hang way back, like it was in no hurry at all. So I did a test. There's a neighborhood by my house where the streets loop, You can make 4 right turns and end up exactly where you started. No reason on earth for anyone to follow you through that. It's a circle to nowhere. I made the first right. The headlights made the right. Second right. There they were. Third right. Still there. And that's the moment it stopped being a feeling and became a fact. Somebody was following me. Somebody had watched me take out cash at a dead ATM at 11:30 at night and had been behind me for 15 minutes and was being patient about it. And here's the thing that scared me the most when I put it together later. They weren't trying to rob me on the road. If they wanted to run me off the road or catch me at a light, they'd had a dozen chances. They didn't want the road. They were waiting for me to go home. They wanted to see where I lived. Because the easiest place to take everything from a man is his own driveway. Or worse, his own front door when his hands are full of keys and his guard is all the way down. And I was 4 turns from my house. My wife was home. She'd have heard my car and opened the door. I drove past my own street. I want to be honest with you. My hands were sweating on the wheel and my heart was going, and driving past my own house, past my own porch light, felt like the loneliest thing I've ever done. But I did it. I kept going. And I drove to the police station. It's about 6 or 7 minutes from my place. I didn't speed. I didn't signal early. I just drove normal, like a man going nowhere special, and the headlights stayed back there the whole way, right up until the last quarter mile. Because here's the thing about a police station. The building announces itself. There's the lit-up sign, the row of patrol cars out front. And whoever was behind me knew the area, because before the station even came into view, the headlights just peeled off. A smooth, easy right turn onto a side street. No drama, no screeching. Gone. Like they'd done this before and knew exactly which streets to be off of. I never got a plate. It was too dark and they were always too far back. I sat in the police station parking lot for a while, shaking a little, and then I went in and reported it anyway. And the officer at the desk didn't treat me like a paranoid guy. That's the part people don't believe. He took it seriously immediately. He asked me which ATM, and when I told him, he nodded like I'd confirmed something, and he told me they'd had multiple reports. Same strip mall, same machine. People pulling out cash late at night, then getting tailed. He said the ones they knew about were the lucky ones, the people who noticed. He said there'd been at least 2 others who didn't notice, who drove straight home, and who got met in their own driveways by 2 men who knew exactly how much cash was in their jacket because they'd watched the machine count it out. One of them was a guy about my age. Same situation almost exactly. Sold something, needed cash for the morning. They followed him home and took it off him at his front door. His kids were inside. They never caught the crew, at least not while I was following the story. The bank eventually put cameras on the lot and the reports stopped, which probably just means it moved somewhere else. It's been 5 years and I still do the things now. I take cash out in daylight, inside the bank, like an old man. I check my mirrors at night more than I check the road, my wife says. And when I pull onto my street, every single time, I look behind me before I make the turn. But the thing that actually stays with me isn't the car, or the headlights, or the 4 right turns. It's how close I came to just going home. Because that was the plan. Turn left, pull in, walk inside, kiss my wife. And the only thing that stopped me was a feeling I almost talked myself out of. A feeling I'd been actively arguing with for 15 minutes. Coincidence, I kept saying. The roads only go so many ways. If I'd won that argument with myself, they'd have followed me right to my front door. and my wife would have opened it. I think about that every time I turn onto my street. Every single time. This is the one that actually scares me, because there's no dark forest in it and no rest stop in the middle of nowhere. It happened at a party, in a nice house, with people I sort of knew. And that's exactly why it took me so long to realize anything was wrong. I was in my mid-20s. A buddy of mine was throwing a birthday thing at his place. Decent crowd, maybe 30 people. The usual mix of close friends and people you kind of know and total strangers that somebody brought along. Normal party. And there was this guy. I noticed him because he seemed to know everybody and nobody at the same time. You know that thing at a party where you assume a stranger is somebody else's friend? Everybody there figured he came with someone else. He was friendly, easy to talk to, remembered your name, asked good questions, genuinely likable. I talked to him for a while myself. Nice guy. It was late in the night. Most people had thinned out, when my buddy, the guy whose party it was, pulled me aside in the kitchen. And he asked me, real quiet, "Hey, that guy in the gray shirt, did you bring him?" I said no. I figured he came with the college crowd. And my buddy said he'd asked the college crowd, and they'd figured he came with us. And when he actually went around and asked everybody, one by one, nobody had brought him. Not a single person at the party knew who he was. He wasn't a friend of a friend. He wasn't anybody's plus one. He'd just walked into the house at some point in the evening and blended and spent hours there, and every single person assumed he belonged to somebody else. Now that's unsettling, but not, like, criminal. Party crasher, right? People do it for free beer. So my buddy decided he'd just politely go ask the guy who he was. And that's when we couldn't find him. We went through the whole house. He was gone. Which, fine. Maybe he clocked that we were onto him and slipped out. But here's what made my buddy go quiet. His bedroom door was shut. And he never shut his bedroom door during a party. He kept it open so people wouldn't go in there. It was shut. We opened it. Nobody inside. But his closet was open, and the little lockbox where he kept some cash and his passport had been moved. Not taken, moved, and left open. And his bedroom window, which was on the ground floor, was unlocked and pushed up a few inches. It had been locked earlier. He was sure of it. The guy hadn't been at that party to drink for free. He'd been walking through the house all night, friendly and forgettable, learning the layout, figuring out who lived there and who was leaving and which room was the bedroom. And at some point, he'd slipped into that room, gone through it, and let himself out the window, leaving it unlocked behind him. For later. My buddy changed his locks the next day and got an alarm. And about 3 weeks later, a house 2 streets over from him got broken in. Ground floor window, nothing forced, like whoever it was already knew the window would open. They never connected it for sure, but my buddy always believed it was the same guy. Working the neighborhood, using parties, open houses, any excuse to get inside and walk around and mark the easy ones. And the reason it scares me more than the rest stop, more than the apartment, is this. Those other times, there was a moment where the wrongness showed. A guy crossing a dark parking lot, footsteps that matched mine, something you could feel. This guy? There was no moment. He was pleasant. He was normal. I stood in a kitchen and had a real conversation with him about nothing, and I liked him, and I never felt a thing. The danger didn't announce itself. It shook my hand and remembered my name and asked how my night was going. That's the part I can't get past. We think we'll feel it. We think there'll be a warning, a chill, a bad vibe, something. And sometimes there is. But sometimes it's just a friendly guy at a party that nobody brought. And by the time you go looking for him to ask who he is, he's already been in every room.